And so with that, we go to the opening question, and it goes, as I said, to Mr. Roberts first. What are the most important challenges facing our state, and how do you propose to address them in the next 2 years?
Thank you for that question. So as I knock on doors in our district, and we knock on doors and we talk to voters, the most important things that I believe are going to be gun safety, women's rights, and of course inflation. When we talk about gun safety, we talk about not only what's going on in the world, but we could talk about the rallies that we had within the city. We talk about the Uvaldes and the Buffalo shootings. Most importantly, what happened here in our state, Sandy Hook, and the tragedy that happened with these kids. The kids were terribly murdered, but most importantly, you know, those kids could have been our future doctors, lawyers, principals, and teachers. I want to basically big up all of my predecessors within the state, at the state Democrats, and how they fought and put $6 million within the actual gun safety prevention law, which is now in Hartford under the public safety initiative. But most importantly, you do also want to understand that with that, they took the guns out of the people that can be a threat or can harm them as well. Inflation-wise, we know about this, guys. We know inflation's, the people that are in the actual state level have cut taxes. They paid down the pension debt, $400 million worth. And most importantly, you got to understand this. This is actually helping us in our operating funds. And as far as women's rights, the right to basically, they're trying to take women's rights away, the right of choice. And I've actually been endorsed by Planned Parenthood as a champion to fight for women's rights. So that's exactly, you know, what I've seen within the city and in the district fighting for.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Estrella, same question.
What was the question?
The question was, what are the most important challenges facing our state, and how do you propose to address them in the next 2 years?
Well, my point in that I guess we've knocked on different doors. Every person that I know, every person whose door I knock on speaks on affordability, on how difficult it is to cover your bills, how difficult it is to put food on the table. That to me is the most important thing that we face, you know, subject that we face in this state. Besides the transparency, there's a lot of people here that don't really know who their state reps are because they never receive an email, don't receive a phone call, nothing. You know, there's, I just plan, sorry, I'm not too good at this. You know, I plan on being, you know, a servant of the people, and be present and, you know, help everyone together. Sorry, I messed it up.
Do you have anything else you want to say on that?
It will come up. Sorry.
Okay. Do you want any rebuttal?
Actually, absolutely. We all know that affordable housing is very important, and it's extremely an economic driver. And so we want students to stay here within the state of Connecticut. So we want to make sure we're bringing businesses in, and we also want to make sure we're building our infrastructure. So as we build our infrastructure, we are producing jobs. While we produce the jobs, the students are here to stay. They go to college, 4-year colleges, whether it's a 2-year college. We want to push forth that needle. So affordable housing is very much important, but as I'm knocking on doors, I'm hearing about inflation, I'm hearing about women's rights, and most importantly, I'm hearing about gun safety.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Estrella?
No, nothing further.
Okay. Thank you. Next question goes to Mr. Estrella first. If elected, what will you do to bring more money into Norwalk for education? They ask to be specific, and can you address the educational cost-sharing formula?
I personally do not know the educational cost-sharing formula. I'm not going to make anything up on that. What was the rest of the question, ma'am?
What would you do if elected to bring more money into Norwalk for education?
To bring more money, that's a difficult question. I'm not an incumbent, but there's a lot of places and a lot of positions in the state where we can where we can cut funding, you know, to certain things that are unnecessary and be more efficient and put that money towards education. You know, it's not all about, you know, bringing money in. There's a lot of different ways that we can bring money in to the state for education.
Okay, Mr. Roberts, same question.
So basically, we need to look at who's educating our teachers. I mean, who's educating our students. We want to make sure that we're creating actual funding solutions to make sure that our teachers want to stay. Out of 365 days out the year, our students see these teachers and see their parents, but their mentors are whom teach them every day. Funding our students is very important, but funding our teachers is very important. We got to provide the best services the teachers are able to give to our students. We need to basically bring forth a 21st century education. So when we talk about educating our students, we talk about new schools. We talk about a New York High School. We talk about how within the state we have a 60% reimbursement rate. And that's going to save us taxpayers hundreds and millions of dollars for a state-of-the-art New York High School. And that not only brightens up a student's ideas and vision, but it also allows them to come to school on a regular basis to see new state-of-the-art technology, to want them to come to be educated. Thank you.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Estrella?
No further.
Okay, all right, thank you both. All right, next question will go to Mr. Roberts first. What would be your plan for reducing underage drug use in the city, especially for school students?
So my plan with reducing that is basically just to work in the school systems with counselors. And as we work in the school systems with counselors, we have to partner with the parents as well. And when we partner with the parents can have that one-to-one with their children, but when they have that one-to-one with their children, they're coming back into the schools. We got to promote these type of activities within the school systems programs so that when the kids are going to class, the teachers are reiterating it to the students as far as how important it is to stay focused in school and to stay away from drugs. So that's definitely it.
Okay, Mr. Estrella, same question?
Well, one of the many ways that we can keep drugs out of underage kids is by not promoting it the way we do. By not putting it in their faces, by not putting up storefronts where they can walk by at any time and see, people doing it absolutely anywhere. In schools, we can definitely have counseling. We already have tons of programs in the city that we can utilize that are there at our dispense for us to use, but they're very severely underutilized because we just don't see it. So I think the counseling and working along with parents is the way to do it.
Okay, any rebuttal?
Yes, we also need to work with the Board of Education members and also the board in general, because they too have insight on what's going on with the school systems. And with working with them, we realize that they understand that students are the future and success is key. So working with the actual Board of Education is very important so that we can task ideas and find wonderful solutions.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Estrella? Okay, next question to Mr. Estrella first. It's affordable housing.
Okay.
What solutions do you propose to expand affordable housing and ensure that all of Connecticut's municipalities provide more affordable housing options?
Well, we all know 830G is a very contentious statute. There's a lot of litigation behind it. One of the things we could do is just better spread, better prioritize which cities and which communities get, the development. There's no specific plans in place to cover, to cover where affordable housing is, where it doesn't go and where it doesn't go. There's a lot of. Sorry, I don't have anything.
All right.
I don't like to make things up. Sorry.
Mr. Roberts.
I believe that every community must build affordable housing. We have to also focus on our seniors, the seniors that want to downsize, that actually want to stay here in Connecticut. We actually have to bring, like I said earlier, bring back businesses within the state of Connecticut. Once we bring back the businesses within the state of Connecticut, that creates more jobs, and that creates the jobs that people would like to come back and live in the state of Connecticut. Like I said, affordable housing is definitely an important idea and decision, but we just want to make sure that we're pushing forth that and helping those that need affordable housing to properly receive those type of services.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Estrella?
Yeah. Affordable housing is a very touchy subject. It's not just one size fits all. Everyone has their fair share in this city. So I think it's going to take a village in order to make it really happen.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Roberts?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you both. Next question to Mr. Roberts first. Child care workers are often termed the workforce behind the workforce, but capacity in Connecticut is down 25%, and workers are leaving the field in droves because of low pay. And yet, childcare is too expensive for many families to afford. How should the legislature address this crisis?
So I believe that the legislature should address the child care crisis as seeing, we need to find more grants and funding for them. As a son of a mother who's been a child care worker for about 45 years within the city of Norwalk, I've witnessed, seeing the low pay, but most importantly, I've witnessed to see the work that they do. As an educator, you've got to be compensated for it. But if we're not compensating the educators, then how are we teaching our students? Child care is very important, and as I was on the Common Council, we actually appropriated grants and funding under the Community Service Department, under Lamont Daniels, as we basically pushed forwarded the funds for the child care within the state of Connecticut. But most importantly, in Norwalk, we have wonderful youth that deserve this. And we got people that want to provide these services. We cannot talk about the kids or the future if we're not funding them. So I would definitely go to Hartford to fight for the funding and bring it back here within the state of Connecticut, but most importantly in the 137th district.
Okay, same question, Mr. Estrella?
One of the ways to help these small businesses, child care centers, they're small businesses, they run like small businesses and they support small families, would be to, support increased funding and support, center-based care for them. So that way they have the correct funding. We can offset the funding for child care through state legislation, and that's a big part that would help them. I've spoken to at least a dozen different child care centers since I'm a father of 3 girls myself already, already looking for child care, and it's expensive. And they say, they do need help, and they say that this, the state can actually do, make a difference and help them by, reimbursing a lot of their expenses that don't get reimbursed. Thank you.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Roberts?
Oh, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Estrella, anything further on childcare? All right, thank you. Next question goes to Mr. Estrella first. Do you think the removal of qualified immunity for police officers has contributed to the disrespect of police officers we see now? Should the law be changed, and if so, how?
Absolutely. It has absolutely exacerbated that. If you know that the person you are going to assault can't defend themselves without penalty, it changes things. Like if you look at New York, their police officers are literally getting mugged while on duty with 2 officers in the car. And they can't do anything. Why? Because if the officer defends himself, he can be held liable for suit against his own personal assets. How would you feel if you went to work and every time you did something wrong, your boss doesn't get sued, you do? We need checks and balances, and we need to help our officers and fund them so that we can, keep our community safe. Actually, my opponent here was endorsed by the Working Family Party, who they their whole thing is to fund the police. So just as an FYI.
Okay, same question, Mr. Roberts.
Definitely, thank you for that question. Community policing is very important within the city and within the state. And my opponent also did state that I was endorsed by the Working Party's family, whom do not want to defund the police. Actually, when we look at the Working Party's family, their actual union members are 2 officers that are on the actual Working Party's family. So when we think about that, we think about community policing. A lot of times we see in Norwalk, police officers are not from the area. So when I think about that, we want to first start about and talk about the recruitment process. We want to talk about where police are being hired from. A lot of people are nervous and scared of police, so they don't understand the concept of that. Police need to hold not just a block party, but more so community events. They need to come into the neighborhoods that people are fearful of and actually sit down and talk to them one by one. If you are a public advocate, if you are someone that is to protect and serve, then you want to be acknowledged as that. The public deserves accountability, so that's why we have body cams. But most importantly, that's why we have officers to make sure they're there to stop crime, to protect and serve. Thank you.
Okay, anything further, Mr.
Yeah,
Estrella?
I can personally vouch that the Norwalk Police Department Community Services Division is at every single event that I go to dozens of events in a week, and they are always there. They are notoriously there. They're always there. I don't understand where, my opponent says that they don't come to events. Like they were there when my opponent marched against them on the highway. Did not keep you safe? Yeah, so obviously they were there. They're there.
Anything further, Mr. Roberts?
Absolutely. And when we speak about marching on the highway, we speak about the rights. That all acquired and came with George Floyd. I actually led those marches. I actually sat down and talked to the police officers as well. But most importantly, when we talk about the police being present at events, it's due to the fact that they have to work these events. So when you think about that, you have to work these events because you do not know the crowd of people out there. Also, the police officers are getting paid as well at these events. So to be present is one thing, but to actually be in the environment of the people and fellowship with the people and speak to them is another thing.
All right, you've both had rebuttal on this, so we're going to go to the next question, and this one will go to Mr. Roberts first. On Election Day, there will be a question on the ballot about early voting. Shall the Constitution of the state be amended to provide for early voting? Do you support the referendum, and why or why not? What other ways would you increase voter participation?
Thank you for that question. I don't know about you guys, but on November 8th, I'm voting yes for early voting. It's very important to me and to a lot of people within the district. When we talk about early voting, we have to talk about electoral reform. So with electoral reform, we need to talk about how it increases voters' access and voter participation. In the state of Connecticut, we do a wonderful job at increasing that, but we got to do better. We have same-day registration. You can go to the DMV, and when you get your license, you can register to vote as well. But we got to talk about the single moms that work 2 jobs that are not able to get to the polls in time. We got to talk about people that are in surrounding towns like Stamford, Norwalk, or those people that actually work in New York City that get off work at 6 o'clock, 6:30, and won't be able to get back to the polling times. We have to expand our absentee ballots, of course, and we actually have to take care of the seniors. The seniors might not be able to get to the polls to cast their vote because due to the fact they might not drive anymore, or we have to focus on the people that have illnesses and have weak immune systems, understanding that COVID-19 is still here, it's still alive, guys, and we gotta make sure that we're pushing forward that needle because it's very important for them.
Okay, same question, Mr. Estrella?
What was the question?
The question is, on Election Day, there will be a question on the ballot about early voting. Shall the Constitution of the state be amended to provide for early voting? Do you support the referendum? Why or why not? And what other ways would you increase voter participation?
I would support the referendum only because, we need to try different things to increase voter outreach, and participation. I think anything different than what we currently have would be, a step in the right direction. Although we already have absentee ballots in Connecticut, so if you can't make it, you have months in advance to request an absentee ballot and cast your vote in either in person or by mail. So I think that's sufficient in my opinion.
Okay, anything further? Okay, thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Estrella first. Do you believe that convicted felons should lose their right to cast a ballot?
I do not think that convicted felons should lose their right to cast a ballot. Everyone makes mistakes in life, and just the fact that I don't think it should.
All right, same question, Mr. Roberts?
I absolutely do not think that convicted felons should lose their right to vote. We're all human. We all make mistakes, but most importantly, we all have the same life to live and a different lifestyle. Convicted felons can come home from prison and create opportunities for their families, create businesses, and that's their right to vote, and they actually have a right to, and that's something that's going to increase that access to voter registration and voter drive and voter percentage and percentile because we want to make sure we're doing this the right way. So absolutely, I believe that convicted felons should definitely have the right to vote when they come home.
Okay, anything further?
No.
All right, thank you both. Next question will go to Mr. Roberts first. How can the legislature help bring our transportation system into the 21st century?
Definitely. Wonderful question. So we got to definitely speak about, so when I was on the council, when we talk about environmental situations and transportation, we have to talk about how we transition our school buses to from diesel to propane. And by doing that, we want to make sure we're building affordable walkways for people to walk, and also widening our roads and implementing bicycle lanes as well. We want everybody to be able to get around the city to eliminate the fossil fuels, but most importantly, stay focused.
All right, same question, Mr.
What's your
Estrella.
question?
The question is, how can the legislature bring our transportation system into the 21st century?
Well, I was actually checking on that today, and I was thinking, electric buses would be a good idea. It would be very convenient to bring it, to use electric buses. It'd be, but the strain it would put on our grid, it'd be terrible. As a conservation advocate, propane isn't one of the healthiest things, and neither is lithium. So it's a tough question. I don't necessarily have the answer to you, but improving our micromobility infrastructure would definitely help transport more people, less traffic. Cleaner transportation would definitely, put us in the 21st century. I think it's all about cleaner transportation in order to get there.
All right, anything further?
No, ma'am.
All right. This one goes to Mr. Estrella first. What can be done at the state level to help towns like Norwalk keep their water clean?
Well, at the state level, I think we need to work with local nonprofits to implement tons of different projects that are actually currently ongoing. We could do things like, change our filters, change our piping. We could install riparian reefs all through, from here to Ridgefield, all up the Norwalk River. That's the Earth's natural filter there. That we don't have to. We won't. If we build up our riparian reefs all along Norwalk River, we will not have to do anything else besides let nature take its course. Thank you.
Okay, same question, Mr. Roberts?
Well, on the council, we actually funded the city's first neighborhood improvement department dedicated to decreasing litter, graffiti, and actually cleaning our water. Actually, my opponent actually works for that department as well. So thank you for that as well. But understanding that, we got to push that forward, guys. We got to make sure we're staying up on part of that. We did that on the council under a Democratic mayor and under the leadership of the council. And by doing this and electing more Democrats, we will make sure we'll do this the right way.
All right, anything further?
Yeah. So I'm actually, I don't work for that department. I'm on the board of Keep Norwalk Beautiful, and which has actually been around since 2005. So, what? Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Roberts?
Oh, man.
Okay, thank you both. Next question to Mr. Roberts first. Connecticut has laws that protect women's rights to reproductive choices and protect women coming in from out of state for abortions and protect the providers who provide those services. Should the law be changed, and if so, how?
I support the right for women's right to choose. We're not safe here in Connecticut at all because it's not fully constitutional law, and I want to fight for that. I actually, like I said to you guys earlier, I'm endorsed by Planned Parenthood, whom is an actual organization that is fighting for the rights for women. And I stand with women. I have a wonderful mom and a wonderful sister and a 10-year-old niece. And I understand what, goes on within this concept. But as a man, I can't tell a woman what to do with her body. And I definitely would not even do that to my own mom or sister or my niece. So I stand on that to tell you guys I support women's rights.
Okay, Mr. Estrella, same question.
I'm pro-choice myself. I went to the professionals on this, which is my mom, my sister, and my wife, and they are all pro-choice. At no point, I don't understand why everyone says that women's rights to reproduce is under attack. It's already a state law. Not a single candidate has said that they would repeal that law. So I don't understand it. I'm pro-choice. I don't think we should infringe on anyone's civil liberties to do anything they want with their bodies.
All right, anything further, Mr. Roberts?
Well, actually, over the past several years, there's been about 30-plus bills implemented by the Republicans at the state level that can affect women's rights and women's rights to choose. So I don't know if my opponent didn't know that, but that's actually a serious thing as well. So we got to make sure we understand that and understand that these women, the women, have the right to do whatever it is with their bodies.
Same rebuttal, any, Mr. Estrella?
Were they trying to repeal, or was it enough, something that affects it? It's very, very big difference there.
All right, thank you both. Next question goes to Mr. Estrella first. It goes back to the housing question. The questioner says, Norwalk is one of the few cities that has both low-income and affordable housing. Would you be in favor of adding more to go beyond the 10% minimum requirement for these?
It is no question that we need more housing, especially more affordable housing. But in Norwalk, we're already at 12 or 13% of affordable housing. So we need, before we build more, I'm not against it, but before we build more, I think there needs to be an actual solid plan so that the people know what is going on and where it's going and why it's going there. That's my idea. That's what I think needs to happen before we keep moving forward. We need to update our infrastructure, and we just can't keep building and building and building.
Okay, Mr. Roberts, same question.
Actually, when I grew up, we grew up in low-income housing. We understand that my parents didn't always have what they needed or didn't have the funds to get me to where I needed to be. So being in low-income housing, it actually was a gift and a curse. The gift was we intertwined with all our neighbors, but most importantly, the curse could have been what we were exposed to. And to provide the services for those people that make less than $30,000 is very important. So when I think about affordable housing, low-income housing, we have to provide those services for those within low-income housing and also affordable housing as well. We want people to stay in Connecticut. We don't want people to leave. So by building more and bringing in these businesses, we're attracting more. And as we attract more, the students will see that I want to come back home. There's jobs for me here. And as these jobs are there for them, they want to start to build their legacy here in Connecticut and in our city of Norwalk, of course.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Estrella?
Yeah, people have been leaving Connecticut by, in droves personally. Like the Democrats, they've had a majority so long that if they were going to do something, they would have done it by now. That's it.
Anything further, Mr. Roberts?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you both. Next question to Mr. Roberts first. Do you believe that the state should be financially supporting social emotional learning in our school systems?
Absolutely. Within the school systems, you got to understand we went through COVID-19 and the kids actually did stay within their homes for about a year. We appropriated funds while I was on the council to give every child Chromebooks within the city. And when those children had Chromebooks in the city, they got online readings, online educations. But to come back to school post-COVID and to see, what they've been through, we got to have that type of social and emotional piece. So we got to implement the counselors that can help them acclimate them back into the system of understanding, okay, you're not home. You need to wake up on time. You need to focus in school. You got to make sure that the kids are doing what it is that they need to do in the school systems possible, but most importantly, that the kids we're bridging the gap and closing that gap and actually being successful to go to college and to actually produce the right opportunities for themselves.
Okay, same question, Mr. Estrella?
We absolutely need to fund social emotional learning for kids in school, especially like I said after COVID-19, we're because of all the mandates and everything. But it cannot take priority over reading, math, English, and those skills. Social emotional learning is good and all. We learn that at home. Like that's what I teach my kids. When they go to school, they learn reading, math. We cannot confuse. One of them can't take precedent over the other. We need to find a balance, and it's not working.
Anything further?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you both. Next question to Mr. Estrella first. Connecticut has both urban and suburban areas with very different issues. Coming from an urban district, if elected, how would you balance the needs of both communities?
Well, funny thing, when I was door knocking, I noticed that of my District 137, I pretty much divided it into three, which was the West Rocks area, Wall Street, and East Norwalk, and they all had different needs. Obviously, East Norwalk and West Rocks are a little more affluent than the Wall Street area, but they want more walking, more walking areas and stores. That's how we bring up our urban areas. If you live in an urban area, there's no reason why you should need a car. We need to build up our areas, bring small businesses, and build parks and green areas to our urban areas.
Okay, same question, Mr. Roberts?
Thank you. I believe that we need to actually push small businesses to want to commercialize themselves. We actually got to create actual town events. So when I get to, God willing, to the state level, I want to implement town hall meetings. I want to actually go into the neighborhoods that people state that it's suburban or urban, and I want to combine them and make them work together to understand, like, this is your state rep, this is where I come from, this is where I'm at now, but most importantly, I want to see, do you know who this person is or that person? It's all about community engagement, but neighborhood engagement as well.
All right, anything further, Mr. Estrella?
Where was all this energy when you were on the council?
Anything further, Mr. Roberts?
You're the moderator, I don't ask no questions. I don't answer questions. Only to
All
the
right.
moderator.
Next question does go to Mr. Roberts first. Back to elections. Do you consider Connecticut's elections fair and secure? If yes, explain why. If not, why not? What should the legislature do to make elections fairer and more secure?
So I just recently read an article that Connecticut is the most audited state within the U.S. So I definitely want to say that I do believe that our elections are very fair. When it comes to, like I said, election reform, we're actually doing as much as we can do as far as getting voters to get out there to vote and voter access and providing those services for people, like I said, within the same day elections or absentee ballots. So I do believe that our elections are very much fair. We can do better, and we will do better. So that's it.
Okay, same question,
What
Mr.
was the
Estrella. The question was, do you consider Connecticut's elections to be fair and secure? If yes, explain, and if not, why not? And what should the legislature do to make elections fairer and more secure?
I personally, as a person who's actually worked the polls here in Connecticut, I feel that the elections are safe. There's a lot of different systems in place to ensure, the safety and transparency of our election. The only thing that I saw that could be improved is there was a lot of older people. We need a way to reach our younger generation to help at polls. I think that right there will keep our elections as transparent as can be, as long as the people who live in the communities are also working the polls.
Okay, anything further?
I definitely will be voting yes on the early voting ballot.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Estrella?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is probably going to be the last question before the closing statements. And I believe both of you are already employed outside of the legislature. And the question is, will you be able to manage your current employment and be a state representative at the same time? How will you manage your time sufficiently? It goes to Mr. Estrella first.
Okay. Well, I'm actually self-employed. I have my own business. I'm a small business owner, and I work part-time for the city of Norwalk. My business essentially runs itself. I have a crew that goes out, they do what they need to do, and I only work part-time for the city of Norwalk. I only work 1 day a week, which is just a Friday, so my schedule is clear and open to invest the time that's needed to represent Norwalk, which is actually a funny thing about Norwalk. It's actually, District 137 is actually the only district that's currently in this election that doesn't share its representation with the surrounding states. So, if 137 is going to elect someone, it needs to elect someone who has the time to dedicate to it.
Okay, same question, Mr. Roberts?
I do have the time. I've always had the time. On the council, I had the time to make sure I mentored the youth. I I've had the time to actually work with small businesses, but most importantly, I've had the time to knock on these doors and talk to these voters. I've done that on election cycles, off election cycles. I've worked every poll. I've stood outside in the rain and in the snow to talk to the people. I am for the people, and I want to be the voice for the people. So when we talk about do I have the time, I do have the time, and I definitely want to make sure that I get at least to touch everybody in my district, because that's very important. And I just, want that to be understandable, that my focus will be for the people, God, when I get to Hartford.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Estrella?
Yeah, I'm actually the only candidate here at this table that's actually involved in their community. I help out everyone in my community in every single way that I can. I sit on a dozen different boards and commissions to actually get things done here in the city. And I'm not just saying, if elected, I'm going to do something. I'm currently doing it.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Mr. Roberts?
Absolutely. I've done so much within the city of Norwalk, and also my background speaks for itself. Being that I have a master's in public administration and local and state government, I could tell you about budgets. I could tell you about what goes on within the city of Norwalk. I've been in the city of Norwalk my entire life. I was in Neon school systems all the way to Norwalk High School, and I still come back and talk to the kids every day. I actually read at Jefferson on a weekly basis, and which is in our district, and I actually push forth everything I can do to work with the kids from Saved, which is in Canaan Baptist Church as well. So when we talk about what have you done, it speaks for itself.
All right, thank you both. At this point, we are now at the time for closing statements. By luck of the draw, it looks like Mr. Roberts will be going first. 2 minutes, no rebuttal.
So I just want to say thank you to the Women League voters for putting on this fantastic forum. And most importantly, thank you to the voters within the city of Norwalk and the crowd watching home at Zoom. I am your advocate, I am the innovator, and I am your problem solver. I witnessed on my campaign trail, I treat this campaign trail like hospice. I watched my uncle battle and fight his entire life on hospice from June all the way until now. He passed away, but when he passed away, he always said, remember what I told you, stay focused and go for the prize. As I look at what goes on in the city of Norwalk, I just want to make sure I excel it. I just want to make sure that I keep going. I talk to the kids every day, and the kids say, you're someone we look up to. And being that I'm someone they look up to, I just want to be that advocate for, the people in the 137th district. On the council, I did so much that I just want to contribute that back into the city and keep going. I'm your public servant. So I ask you not to sprint with me, but the marathon must continue. So as we think about a marathon, we think about how you run, how you stop, how you go. And we're not sprinting, guys. So I ask you to run this marathon with me on November 8th as you cast your ballot for Kadeem Roberts for the next state representative of the 137th district. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Estrella, closing statement.
I'm just gonna read this one now. So a little bit about me. So I was born in Paris, New Jersey, and moved to Norwalk in 2000. I've lived in 2 different countries and 3 different states, but Norwalk is where I chose to raise a family. But lately, it hasn't been looking too good. It's time to bring integrity, common sense, and civility to our community. House District 137 is an interesting district, and in my opinion, the most important district. It is one of 2 districts that does not share its representation with any of the surrounding towns. When you look at the map, of all of Norwalk's, when you look at the map of the 137, I essentially represent all of Norwalk's river watershed areas, its harbors, and Manresa Island. As a representative of the 137, I would represent projects like the Walk Bridge Project, the East Norwalk TOD, the South Smith Street facilities, the Exit 16 deforestation, and the very underutilized Veterans Park. Electing me is the opportunity to bring forward transparency, inclusiveness, common sense, level-headed, community-driven representation. I am receptive and welcome different ideas and understand the issues firsthand families in Connecticut face. I ask you to vote for Lisa Estrella on November 8th because nothing will change unless we get out there and do it ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I want to thank everybody in the audience for your excellent questions. And I want particularly to thank both candidates who took the time to come here and answer them. Thank you.